when we just started, our very first project that actually paid and used this system was here in London. And it was introduced to the wider team at some point because we started out working with just like a couple guys on site. They started making jokes about how this tool will now collect all the information and then make all the decisions, and they can go home and they don't have a job. And I told them, look, that is never going to happen. Data, information, is useless without someone applying what they know about the project and what's the right thing and making the right decisions. This is for you. This cannot, in any world, without you, it's useless. And that's the point of what you say. It's, yes, there are all sorts of data and metrics and information, and now somebody has to figure out, is it a problem that I'm not utilizing those areas? Are other things a problem? Actually, more like one of the things we used there, we called it trade inconsistency, basically the difference in output from one week to the next. It was crazy town variations. I have a graph from a project that shows how on 1 week they installed 27 AC units, the next 8, the next 12, the next 3, the next, like that. And you look at this graph, and then I say, well, honestly, we spoke before the recording about manufacturing. If I am Elon Musk and I walk into a Tesla factory and they tell me, oh, we produced 27 engines this week, but 8 last week, I'm shutting down the factory. This can't be. How can you manage things this way?
Yep.
But somebody has to look at all that and decide what's important. It's not for me to say.
Yeah, and decide what's important, but also identify what might be the problem.
Yeah.
Right. And in that same scenario, when you're doing that many, maybe it's, a certain set of parts didn't make it. Maybe it's the crane pick that was slowing the ability to have those units available on the floors or the places where they needed to be. There's lots of reasons, right? Part of the problem is we're afraid to find out the reasons for some odd reason. That's a lot of saying reason over and over. But for some strange reason, we don't want to necessarily know the problems, but it's like, if we know the problems, then we as humans can make a good decision and possibly get ahead of it. That's it. That's the power, right? Evart, the power is in transparency to then react and make changes and make improvements. It's carrot versus stick, maybe, is part of the problem, the way we use tech.
And that's what I'm thinking is, long-term mass adoption will lead to change in other ancillary workflows involved in construction, and really specifically towards cash flow projections. And being able to have variable cash flow projection instead of a S curve or right leaning curve. You're going to have potentially, if you're really paying out paychecks based on percentage complete and quality, then that's not going to be a smooth curve. And I think that in and of itself will kind of re-incentivize trades in a way to be as efficient as possible, because it's not going to be a project manager that approves their pay app requests. It's going to be AI or potentially a computer that is quantifying their impact on the project, validating its quality, and then releasing the payment or releasing the approval. And that's where I think it's exciting time right now, is because that in and of itself, being able to have a non-biased third-party technology approach towards progress tracking and taking it out of the hands of a project manager or even an entity that may have a little bit of unknown bias built into their approach towards managing the progress or tracking the progress. I think that in and of itself will revolutionize how cash flow is projected, as well as potentially revolutionize how quality is ensured on projects from the standpoint of quantifying impact of a trade, releasing payment based on their impact. And then from there, the domino effect of how contracts will be written, I think, will change.
Interesting. So
I gotta jump in on that and just say that.
Go ahead.
I think my experience has shown that people who think, call it, even the more experienced people in this industry understand that it's not a zero-sum game. I have sometimes, people that come to speak to me and consider BuildOS, and they talk about using BuildOS as a way of, basically hitting their subcontractors. But when you understand that the project as a project can just be far more efficient and everybody wins, then you start approaching things differently. And I think that's what can happen to this industry. In a world where there is no truth, because it's all like very dynamic and subjective data collection, I can see why anyone faced with a situation will protect themselves and their business and say things that they're not sure of just to be on the safe side. But suddenly you can introduce the transparency and suddenly everyone can win. I was shocked when this happened, but that first project that I mentioned, I came to visit at one point, and I was sure the subcontractors hate me, because the system showed where they were delayed, and it showed where one of them installed the window 1 meter out of position, and all sorts of things. And I thought they're gonna shank me or something. And then they come to me, a couple of them, and these are the two that we found the most delays for, the system found, and a few major quality issues. And they come to me and say, we want to introduce you to other GCs that we're working with, because it's in our benefit that this exists there and everybody can collaborate more.